Hey, what's going on, people? It's your boy, Mr. Bell. Welcome to another episode of Hold Up in Another Thing presented by Mixed Bags Media. And if you heard, you should already know the vibes. Man, I got a very, very special guest with me. He's been many places, Fox News. I did my research. He did interviews with Yahoo. But now he took time to kick it with me for a little bit. Mr. Todd, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Quentin. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for taking time. Like I told you, I was gonna tell you before the pod. I'm gonna tell you on the pod. Thank you for taking time because people don't have to take time, but you did that, and I appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Well, I'm not going to explain to the people. I'm gonna let you do it. What are you best known for?
Well, you're looking at it right here. It's Oliver the Ornament. So I'll give you a little background. So I was working in corporate America, had a great job, had my retirement planned. I knew exactly, my exit strategy. I'd been there for 20 years and we were just rocking it, had year after year after year of great results. And on my 20th anniversary, my company had a massive corporate downsizing of over 500 people. And for my 20th anniversary, got a pink slip for my 20th anniversary gift. And it was such a fantastic job and such a fantastic career. And I saw so many people that were my age that had left my company and they had gone to another company and they worked there for 2 years. And then they worked there for another company for 2 years. And I knew I wanted to work about 10 more years at that point. And the last thing I wanted to do was work at 4 or 5 jobs in 10 years. That would be after having worked at the same company and having had such such a great experience for that long. I didn't want to do it. So I just decided to start my own gig. So I did some consulting, did some sales training. And then about 10 months later, I was decorating a Christmas tree and someone came up to me as I'm hanging the last of 200 ornaments on the tree and said, "You don't have to hang every ornament on the tree." And I looked at the last ornament and I said, "What am I going to do with this one? Put him in the attic where he's going to miss out on all the fun this Christmas. And then all the other ornaments are going to go back in the attic in January and they're going to make fun of him because he missed out on all the fun." And all of a sudden the light goes off in my mind. A kid's story about an ornament that gets left behind in the attic. So I knew I was onto something. The career that I was in was marketing and advertising. So for the next 3-4 days, my mind is just racing, thinking, oh my gosh, there's never been a kid's story about ornaments. This would have to be a series of books as well because everybody has multiple ornaments. So it'd have to tell the story of all the family's ornaments. And there's never been a children's Christmas series book series for Christmas. There's never been a series of books for kids for Christmas. Mm-hmm. I woke up on Christmas morning, 4:00, and the story came into my mind. I went down to my mom's computer in Wisconsin, and 45 minutes later, the first book was written.
Wow.
So it took me 45 minutes, but here we are 10 years later. I've just released the 7th and final book in the series. The first book in the series starts Thanksgiving night, and the last book ends Christmas morning. So think of the 7 books as 7 chapters in one family's entire Christmas season, with every book ending with this really exciting cliffhanger that leads into the next book. So each of the books tells the story how the different ornaments entered the family's collection, while we also talk about really important lessons. We talk about determination and friendship, and most importantly, kindness. But there's a lot of fun along the way as well. We have an antagonist that we introduce in the second book who tries to ruin Christmas for everybody throughout the Christmas season, and her efforts are always thwarted. So kind of think of it as the fun and the mystery of, say, Scooby-Doo and the traditional holiday, great storytelling of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Okay. You went from a very different field. You went from marketing and sales to author.
It's crazy.
Was anything but that could prepare you for doing this this role that you're doing now?
Well,
It's a wide range.
it's, and it's weird because since I've read that now I do this. I mean, this is my job now. But most authors, well, all authors are very creative people.
Mm-hmm.
And many creative people, it's kind of that right brain, left brain. Either you're good with analytics and business, or you're good with creative. And you typically don't have both of those skill sets.
Right.
And I say this very humbly because they came from God, but and my parents. But I was a business person first, specializing in marketing and advertising. But I was always very creative in my approach. I was always super creative. And so then I come up with this idea. So when people say you're an author, I kind of I'm like, no, I'm a businessman who just happened to write a book. So it's kind of, it's like, I just kind of fell into it. And, here I am, 7 Christmas books and 1 patriotic book later. And, just love it.
You tripped into being an author, but like you said, you're a businessman first.
Yeah. I mean, so then over the course of the last 10 years, that's when I've been building the business. And that's where, I talk to so many authors where they're like, what do you do once you wrote the book? I'm like, well, writing the book is the easy part of it, the marketing and the selling and, making it profitable, and making a living out of it. That's the difficult part. I mean, not anyone can write a book, but go to the library and you see how many books go to
That's a good point.
You see how many books are written, there's not a lot of authors who are making livings, so you have to be a business person in order, otherwise you have to, have a publisher, who does all that.
Okay. You're the first person I ever said that writing the book was easy, but you did it in 45 minutes. That sounds amazing to me. But did you realize what you was doing while you was doing it? You came up in 45 minutes.
I woke up. I remember it I'll remember it to my dying day. I woke up. It was 4:00, and my wheels were spinning for those previous 4 days from the time I came up with the idea. And I'm like, I have to come up with the story. I know the premise of the story, but I don't know the story. And I woke up and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's the story. It's fantastic. And I knew how it was starting. I had the starting line. And I just said to myself, okay, you got to get out of bed and you got to go down to the computer and you got to just start writing and see how far it's going to go. And I just typed away, and 45 minutes later, I had a 26 chapter book. So
that's an accomplishment. Let's praise you for that.
Now I gotta tell you, I did a ton of edits after that. I did enhancements to it, but the general outline of the storyline has remained identical to what was created on Christmas morning.
Okay, let me ask. I gotta ask this: when you was in marketing and doing the sales, was there ever a thought that you possibly would be an author, or was no? Okay, I didn't think so, but I just had to ask.
I wrote really good sales letters and really good emails. That was my right, and I wrote. That was the extent of my writing.
Yeah, I understand that. Along this process, like you said, you've been doing this for 10 years. What has been the most surprising thing that you have discovered in promoting these books in the ornaments? Because it's not only just books. You, like you said, you turn it into a business. You sell ornaments and things like that as well.
Ornaments, puzzles, yeah, the whole 9 yards. So a couple of really surprising things. Basically, every woman that I have met at a trade show where I've been selling books, whether that's a retail shop owner or a mom or a grandma, has an idea for a book. Everyone has an idea for a book. And I constantly tell them, then write it, because everybody's got a story and you should tell it. And some people's books are going to be more interesting than the other, but it's really, it's really, it's ever, without doubt, everyone has a story. And I'm sure the people who are listening to this now are thinking, yeah, I've got a story. And I'm telling you, write your story. The other thing that I've learned that has been really rewarding for me is I have had so many women come up to me at these shows or send me DMs or send me emails and talking about how emotionally attached they are to this story. And they start telling me when they talk to me in person, they'll tell me stories of the collection of the ornaments that they got from their grandmother, who's no longer alive, and how special they are. Or they'll talk about the ornaments that their kids gave them, they made for them, and now the kids are grown. So I wrote this kids book that resonates with adults, which is, you write a kids book and parent or grandparent is going to give it to the kid, and then the child's going to read it, and then that's it. But this story is really different because everybody, when for those people who celebrate Christmas who are hearing this right now, I can almost guarantee it, they're thinking about one of their most special ornaments themselves.
Yes. If you, like you said, if you celebrate Christmas, you have that special ornament in it. If you'll remember it for the rest of your life. You might have got it when you was 8, but you remember it till you're 68. Yeah.
I saw an interview. These fires in California were just god awful, just horrible. And I saw this interview with this one woman, and she was just sobbing. And she's like, my ornaments. She's like, all of my ornaments are gone. She didn't care about anything else in her house.
Wow. That's it. They hold a special place in your heart.
Yeah.
Because people collect them. Some people collect them throughout the years and things like that.
So what's your favorite ornament? Do you have a favorite ornament on your tree?
Ooh, that is a great question. Once I became a parent, a lot of my things become what my child likes because I get to share the moment and I get to see his face. So this year, I'll tell him this year he had a Bob Ross. He seen it in Walmart and he just fell in love with it because he sits and watches Bob Ross paint. He doesn't paint, but he'll sit and watch Bob Ross paint. So that's for me now. I think that is my favorite. That's my favorite.
That's great. That's awesome.
Because I don't know why. I guess maybe some other parents share that things, but once I have a situation with my child, that becomes my favorite moment. Yeah. Everything else I did as a kid no longer matters. It's all about his childhood and sharing those experiences with him because it's about seeing the joy and the smile on his face.
Yeah.
That's the most rewarding thing. I want to ask you a question about the process because I've never, as many authors as I've interviewed, I've never talked about the process after the book is done and you going out to promote it. And I heard you talked about the trade shows and things like that. But what was the process in between going out to selling and then in writing it? What was your steps in between that?
It was 20 months. It took me, I wrote the book on Christmas and the book was available. I started, not 20 months. The book came in it took 23 months. So the books arrived in November. So of not the following year, but the year after. So from the time I wrote the book, the first thing I had to do was get an illustrator because, a children's book is going to be, is going to live or die by an illustrator.
Yes.
So that was the very first thing that I did. So I found an illustrator and then what I did I had never done this before. So I didn't know, but I knew that we had 15 characters in the book. We had 11 ornaments and 4 family members. So I knew that we had to get all the characters right. I don't really care what the living room looks like. I don't really care what the outdoor scene looks like. I don't really care, I know what I want the tree to look like, but the characters are what we have to do. So we went through one by one, and I think I can be a pretty expressive, and I think I can give pretty concrete directions. But to say that you've got an ornament, I want you to draw an ornament of a little boy who has ice skates, and he's probably about 7 years old, and that's it. And then we came up with, you see him, you see how cute he is, he's just super cute.
Yes.
So some of them, and then we have a teddy bear. Like the teddy bear was great. We got that in one
take.
We got that in one take. Then we have a bell ornament, and all the characters have names. And Bell took us about 6 weeks, where he would give me an illustration. I'd be like, no, that's not it. He's like, you got to just describe it better. And how do you describe something in your mind that you've never seen?
Yes.
It's really, it's like playing charades with a blind person, and so from the time we started that took 6 months. No, that took 8 months, excuse me. That took 8 months to get all the characters down. And then we did the chapters, and the chapters took 6 months. But then all the while we're doing that, I'm finding manufacturers in China. I'm hiring a PR firm. I'm, finding a fulfillment company that when the product comes in from China, that they will take care of the orders. I'm building a website. I'm, orchestrating a social media plan. And then I launched on Kickstarter when it was available. So I had to start with that. So there's just a lot of steps. But the first thing I did was, after hiring the illustrator, actually the first thing I did after I wrote the book was wrote a business plan. Because my plan with this was never to do this as a hobby. This was going to be a business. I'm treating this as a business.
Like you said, you had the 10-year mark. You knew you were going to do it for 10 more years.
Yeah.
You had a plan. You came up with a plan. I think, like you said, you having that background in business helped you out. Like you said, helps you out.
Unfortunately, now that 10-year plan is probably turned into a lifelong plan. It's probably there's probably no exiting from this.
I was just getting ready to ask you, because I got to ask.
Yeah.
So what's next? You said you released the last book late last year. So what's the next plan? Do you want to write another book?
You'll have to read the whole series. You can read the whole series, and you'll find out how the story ends. So we are. I have my goal at the end of 10 years. When I set out a goal for myself, and that's that I wanted to be involved with serious conversations with Hollywood studios for the creation of the first ever Christmas animated series. And we have a preliminary option on doing exactly that. So we have brought Oliver to life in a little 5-second clip, and now we are in some very interesting conversations in Hollywood about creating a feature animated special on Oliver.
Okay, that's exciting news. That is exciting news. Best of luck with that. I do want to ask you, in promoting this book, what has been your favorite part?
I love talking to folks like yourself. I've been, I've been on a lot of news programs. I live in Chicago, so I've been on WGN a lot. I like that, not because of the publicity, but because everybody can relate to this story. And we get such positive feedback from, reporters who at times can be kind of, jaded. They're not too impressed, and they're like, this is such an interesting story. And even reporters tell me their stories. So that's been really interesting. Meeting all these small business owners from the retailers that carry my product, that's been really interesting. Meeting the First Lady of the United States of America, that is right up there as probably one of the most interesting things that's ever happened in my life,
What was that like?
Well, that was incredible. So my mom, who was very involved with my business from the day that I wrote it, she called me in January of 2018 and said, "You've got to get the book in the hands of the First Lady. She's got this anti-bullying initiative, and your book teaches about kindness and is fighting bullying, and it could change the trajectory of your business if you got that." And I thought, well, that's a really good idea. So I wrote down on my list of things to do, First Lady outreach. Well, 6 weeks later, my mother passed away very suddenly, and it was tragic. And so when other people, everybody grieves differently, but when you lose someone, you get to, when you're dealing with that grief, you get to go back to work and forget about that grief for maybe just an hour a day or maybe a half hour a day. My mom was so involved with my work that when I went back to work, it was still on my mind constantly. She was still on my mind constantly and what had happened. And then in August of that year, I was looking at my list of things to do, and I saw First Lady outreach. I'm like, oh, that was mom's idea. So I wrote the letter to her chief of staff and just commended her and the First Lady on what they were doing to combat bullying and let them know that I was trying to do the same thing. In October of that year, I got an email from the White House, sitting at my desk, and an email from the White House comes in asking me if I would be available for a talk with the First Lady's staff tomorrow, the next morning. And of course, I checked my schedule and I made myself available.
Yeah, I think that's what you do when you get that call.
And so they told me that the First Lady had evaluated over 200 Christmas books for the annual gathering at Children's National Hospital, and she'd selected Oliver the Ornament to be read at this year's event. So this was the event that started. You always see it on the news at Christmas time. Mm-hmm. It started with Bess Truman. Every single First Lady has done this ever since then. There never has there been a First Lady that has missed it. So I was honored, obviously beyond belief. I hung up the phone and my first thought was, I've got to call Mom. So it was really bittersweet because it was her idea. So, 2 months later, I fly out to Washington, D.C. and, meet the First Lady. I'm sitting next to her as she's reading my book. She was wonderful. She was gracious and kind and just so, friendly. And there is something kind of funny that I'll tell you if you don't mind. So we're in the line where everybody's in the line. The Secret Service is there, and I'm the last person in line. And the CEO of the hospital says, "And now, Mrs. Trump, it's my honor to introduce to you." And he's going to say, and she's like, "You must be Todd." And I said, "Yes." And so I walk up, we shake hands, and she's like, "I just love your books." And my reaction always when somebody says, "I just love your book," is like, "Oh, you read it?" So that's just my reaction because I just can't believe that people read my book. It's just still, it's that business mind. And I said, "Oh, you've read it?" And she looks at me, she's like, "Of course I read it. That's why you're here." And I look at her in front of everybody. I said, "Well, no shit, you read the book." And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just swore in front of the First Lady. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on your podcast, but I'm like, I just swore in front of the First Lady. I made a total jerk of myself. I start laughing. She starts laughing. We go out there. She reads the book. It's filmed on national television. I'm sitting next to I'm from Sheboygan, Wisconsin, and I'm sitting next to the First Lady of the United States. In 2019, I got an email again. I didn't ask to be included for the event in 2019 because I just thought that'd be greedy. But I released the second book in my series in 2019, and I received an email from the First Lady's office saying that she had evaluated 200 books this Christmas. And she had selected the second book in our series to be read. So we got to go back to Washington, D.C. a second year. And the third year, we got an email in, I think it was September, saying the First Lady has decided not to evaluate any books. She loves your book. She's going to read the third book in your series. So 3 years in a row, I went to Washington D.C. and now we exchange Christmas cards. So
wow, you on first name basis with the.
I still call her Mrs. I still call her Mrs.
I know, but I'm saying that's still you exchanging gift cards with the first lady. That's an accomplishment in itself. In let's go back to this 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a great job. That is a
what I love about that is because I do a lot of programs at schools. So I've got a program tied to the book called Oliver's Day of Kindness, where we teach children the important message of kindness. We do story time, we do kindness activities, but then we also talk about how in America, children can accomplish anything they set their minds to it. And I talk about my story, how I grew up in a total middle class, working, wonderful family in a small town in Wisconsin. And I end up meeting the president of the United States and have the first lady read my books 3 different times. I'm like, anybody can accomplish anything. And that's, and I believe that with all my heart.
That is true. That is true. 2 more questions before I get you out of here. The first question is, when people read these books, we talked about bullying. Is there any other message that you want them to remember, that you want them to come across?
Well, there's one message. It's kind of an activity. We end every book the exact same way, where we talk about the fact that Oliver told a special story. Now, why don't you sit down with your family and have them tell you the stories of the ornaments next to me? Because every ornament tells a story. So what we want families to do is sit down after they've read the book. The holidays are so busy. And you know what? Mom and Dad, tell them the story of that's the ornament that they got on their honeymoon, or that's the ornament that they got from from your great grandma who's no longer here. So have some family time. So every one of my books ends the exact same way.
Okay. And I don't want to speak for you, but I think I know the answer to this question. We all, when we accomplish something or when we're trying to achieve something, it's people that help us along the way. How I end all my podcasts when I interview people is, who would you like to thank the most for helping you get to here?
God and Jesus.
Okay. All right.
None of this could have happened. None of this could have happened without. I mean, of course, all of my family, my friends, all of the the illustrators that I've worked with, all of them. But I don't think it was a coincidence that, I woke up, Christmas morning, and wrote this book. I don't think it was a coincidence that I've never written a book before. And it happens to get read by the First Lady of the United States of America. I believe in coincidences, but this is one that I don't believe in.
I had a feeling because of something you said earlier, that was the answer you was going to give. But how was it for sure? But I thought so. Last thing, I said 2 more questions, but it is 1 more question. Where can these people find your book?
So they can find it at olivertheornament.com. And we've got 2 different specials. You're going to put the link, right?
Yes, sir.
In the notes. So there's going to be a link in the notes where you click on that link and you automatically get 20% off on any one of your purchases. We're doing a different special as well. If people are interested in the entire collection of all 7 books of all 14 ornaments, it's normally 40% off. It's a huge savings. We're doing it at that same 40% off for your audience. But we're also, when you buy one, you're going to get another one free. And that's a limited time only, but it's about 70% off. And so all they have to do is put 2 items in their cart and they use the promo code. They won't don't have them use your link on that because it won't allow them to do it. So okay. You go to olivertheornament.com and use the promo code BOGO, buy one, get one.
Okay.
Add 2 items. They add the 2 collections to their cart and they put in that promo code and one gets taken off. So special offer for your audience.
Okay, I appreciate that. Everybody go out and support this, man. Thank you, Todd, so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to do this podcast. Thank you so much, and good luck going forward.
Thank you. It's been a really fun conversation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Everybody, thank y'all for listening to another episode of Hold Up and Another Thing, presented by Mixed Vibes Media. Y'all should know the vibes. The link will be in the bio below. Make sure y'all click. Make sure y'all go out and support. And I'll catch y'all next time.